Evening all, welcome back to Total of the Dust. And what you see to you before your eyes today is a fun match and a defeat. So that stops some of the haters. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Eve 2.0, Eve Dust, Eve Revenant, calling it now. And I do honestly think that it's going to be an interesting kind of few months. And if you weren't involved with Dust from the very start, let me tell you about a time. Let me take you back to a time when Dust had just been announced, and it was a closed beta, and a very young, fresh, wide-eyed, and much slimmer CEO Pyrex basically created an account and started playing this wonderful game we called Dust. And it was good times, and it was such a strange kind of unusual game. Didn't have any feeling to it at all, really. It felt very, very kind of unusual and blank almost. Now, that's a strange thing to say, but it was very generic. And but I would say there was a lot of nice things that came with it, and it did have that feeling of, oh my god, this is an Eve shooter. And the times were good, the fights were good. Chromosome, which was the engine that was used, for those that don't know, Chromosome was the actual graphical engine. It was a lot simpler, but I tell you what, it was a lot faster as well. So things like the shotgun ran beautifully. So if you look at shotgunning today, it's kind of like you're wrestling a bull, and you're kind of grabbing a bull by the horns and you're trying to sort of force it around a kind of, very complex series of roundabouts in Swindon, and it's like not really working. Whereas I think in Chromosome the game really did work, and it looked a bit kind of poo, but it did play very nice. So I think that was an interesting kind of like starter for 10. Is obviously the engine wasn't good enough for a AAA game as they wanted this game to be, but I think after the reality of it all, they probably shouldn't have bothered. They should have just stuck with Chromosome. It ran beautifully. It was so smooth. It was quite nice. I liked it a lot, actually. I had a huge amount of fun playing Chromosome. But when you look at what the game is now and what you look at what the game became, it's an interesting kind of change from obviously what we've got now. So you can see the evolution of it's gone huge steps. That and that's a key point. So keep that in your mind. So Eve 2.0, Eve Revenant, Eve Dust, I can't even say it anymore, is going to be an interesting kind of time, because you're right back to that open beta, or closed beta is obviously it's going to be hopefully soon. And you're going to have a game that, again, maybe won't make much sense, and it's going to be a bit strange, to be honest. I think it will probably not be the game that it is in this form. So this is quite, again, I know a lot of people hate me for saying things like this, but it's not a bad shooter. I quite enjoy the shooting element of it. It seems to work. It seems to be quite kind of gung-ho. I don't like aim assist, but the game wouldn't work without aim assist because it's a console game. So it's these kind of things, you know what I mean? It's you've got to have that kind of balance. Now on PC, you're not going to have aim assist. That's number one. You're not going to have any kind of assisted shooty shoots. So in theory, you've got to be really, really accurate if you want to use your rifles and such. But a lot more people are probably going to end up playing like I am playing here, which is using things like area of effect weapons, or those kind of weapons that I think just work differently, if you like. So to me, that's going to be an interesting change, because you're going to go from very accurate, very assisted people who are going to now be in a game where there's no aim assist, and it's going to mean that you're going to have to be a very good shot. Problem is that by using mouse and keyboard, your chances are your shoots are going to be a lot easier anyway. So I do think that could well be something to bear in mind. Is it's going to be that little bit kind of easier to shoot people anyway, because if you think about it, moving a controller with your thumb, okay, you can be very good at that, but it can still be it's a lot easier to use a mouse and keyboard, is what I'm saying. So that's number one. Number two, you're going to have a completely different community. So you're going to have the Eve communities in here. Now, I honestly would say that the communities in Dust at the moment are very traditional communities. Now, I'm going to be very careful with my words here, but a long time ago, I insulted Ancient Exiles a long, long time ago, and it was all just sort of, fleeting, smacky, talky bollocks. But the way that they nerd raged at me was interesting, because I'm not used to that. I come from kind of the Goon Swarm culture, if you like, or methodology of playing game, which is if you nerd rage at me, you are fair game and you are an absolute dick, and we're all going to be destroyed, and you're going to be laughed at, pilloried, and just completely the piss taken out of you. And I was surprised to see how many cultures of alliances in this game run on exactly that premise. You know, that kind of, you know, get butt hurt and then try and talk shit to people. And I loved that. I thought that was really interesting. So basically, these alliances that maybe are coming as a gang into Eve are going to get absolutely ripped to pieces by how seriously they take it, by how unjokeable they are about so many of the things in this game. And they're just going to be tormented, teased, and absolutely given a shit time. So I would just stress, when you come into this new game, please understand that the cultures of Eve really do hate kind of serious business and douchebaggery and dickheads. And if we didn't fight this endless war against Bob, Band of Brothers alliance for nothing, we wanted those fuckers out of the game because they just took it too seriously. And we were there to have fun because lol, it's a game. And you know, it was kind of this whole thing of, you know, we're terrible at this game and yet we're beating you. And the amount of people that used to drive nuts was hilarious. And that used to be my return smack line if somebody gave me grief. I would just be like, I know, man, I can't believe I beat you and I'm terrible at this game. What's wrong with you? And the amount of hatred that used to get was astonishing. Anyway, so culturally, it's going to be a different game as well. I would say that having that kind of, you know, better link to Eve is going to be an interesting view. Is it going to be fully integrated to Eve? Is it going to have something akin to, you know, the kind of spaceship side of the game? Is it going to be set on the ground? Bloody hope not, because it'll be really nice to think that you're actually fighting on platforms and stations and, you know, ships and, you know, the hulls of ships. Imagine that, fighting on the hull of a ship as it's fighting in a fleet war. I know it's not possible, but it would look amazing and it would just be cool. And I think this is the thing, you know, whoever is their marketing person, I really do hope they've spent a bit of money on it, because think about this. If you could go to the market and you say, we're developing a shooter that enables you to sit in a gang in, you know, there's a fleet fight going on in Eve, you're able to sit in a boarding torpedo and you're all sat there as the thing's shaking and rocking. And in Eve, you can see this torpedo being fired from a ship and it's going, you know, arcing towards a Titan or something. And, you know, inside the game of Eve Shooter, or Dust 2.0, you're basically sat there, you know, rocking, and then you're looking at your colleagues and you're like, yeah, brofist, you know, and you're ready for a fight. And all of a sudden, clunk, and you bash into the side of that ship, and the door opens, and then you are into that ship, and you've got like shotguns and, you know, heavy machine guns, you've got logi chains, you've got all manner of hell just broken loose. And every single kind of shot and stray plasma cannon hit in certain areas is starting to damage the ship that you're on. You have the ability to start hacking, so certain guns go offline. You have the ability to run towards the Doomsday device room in the Titan and actually switch the thing off. You can actually defend that as a point, and all the time that is actually defended as a point, the Titan can't fire its Doomsday. The same with the jump drive, so you could have, you're being owned. Let's say there's thousands of their team and only a couple of you. The ability to plant a team on a ship and disable its jump drive and keep it disabled while in Eve a fleet is formed to come deal with it. CCP, if you do that, you've got a game on your hands that Star Citizen would be jealous of. And I think, honestly, if they're not developing the game in that direction, they are missing out. It can be done so that it's not kind of too complex. I think it could be just simply done, whereas this kind of map where you have to literally hack a point and it does something, you could do that. But if you did it and you made it, you know, credible, you would have a game that I think nobody has seen before. This ability to do boardings. And I know everyone's saying you can do that in Star Citizen. I don't mean boarding a little kind of cruiser or anything like that. I mean boarding a big ship. And I mean a sustained fight. So in Eve, obviously you can't have it just destroyed in Eve, which might piss them off, but who cares? You know, it could be that once you're boarded, you enter a reinforcement timer. So you can disable the systems on the Titan from the outside. So you could actually just target the engines and shoot them out. Or you could actually switch the flicking things. You know, you could basically just, you know, put it in an reinforced mode and then that's it. Now, I know these are technically almost impossible things to do, but they're not totally impossible. And I do honestly think that the game at the moment needs that correlation. And I think while they don't have that, I think it's very difficult to kind of say that the Eve and Dust and all that is really going to ever compete with Star Citizen. Star Citizen has had so much money thrown at it that a lot of developers, I think, are just not trying to even compete. Because how can you compete with that much money? But I think the difference is that Eve has the pedigree, and it has a better culture of lore. It has a kind of much more interesting potential, and I think CCP used to be, and I hope they still are, a company that takes risks. So I think if they did something even 10% of what I've just described there, people would be absolutely lunatic about that game, because and it's always the unique point, it's always the sizzle that sells. So, you know, Dust was sold because it was really kind of like a shooter based upon Eve. That's really the USP of it. A lot of people came to it because it was free on the PS3, yes, and a lot of people who came for it for an Eve shooter probably didn't last long, which is a shame. But if you can just kind of keep that single unique selling point of it's based in space or something, and it's linked to Eve, and you basically are fighting over something, a shared asset, and you know, you have this ability to, on many different levels, influence the gameplay. I just think that would be astonishing. Anyway, that's my prediction. If they do that, they've got a game. They really do. There's probably a million and one other things that they could do, and I know I've spoken about this before, but I always like the idea of fighting on a ship's hull as well, because obviously you could have some form of artificial gravity field, and you could just be fighting on the hull of a ship. That also would be pretty freaking awesome. I don't know. It's going to be a kind of interesting few months, really, of no news, not knowing what's going on, and then hopefully FanFest will bring some kind of update, and it'll be interesting to see really what they're proposing. It could just be a slideshow at this point. I'd love it to be an actual demo, but I don't know if they're that far along. I think this is the issue, is that the language suggests it's not as far along as maybe we think it is, which is a kind of shame, really. I do hope it's a bit more far along than maybe it is, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. It could quite honestly just be a like Dust was when it was first announced. It's just a series of screenshots. You know, if it's just that, that's going to be sad, but you know, I'll take it. It's better than nothing. So you know, I'm kind of keen to see what the game becomes. I don't know really what it's going to what they're going to show. So you know, that to me is the key point. If they can, you know, give a good showing, that it's going to be interesting. So we go. Post in the comments. Tell me what you think about these ideas. Tell me what you want to see in the new version of Dust. I think for me, you know, it would be nice to have something on the ground. It could be a PI, planetary interaction concept. I think that was originally what they thought of doing, but I know things like zero gravity could be an issue. I know that's obviously been a big issue on Star Citizen as well, but I'm just curious. I'm just excited. You know, I really do want to know what this game is going to become. And our commitment stands. We're not going anywhere. We're just going to keep playing it, even if there's a bit of a downtime, a bit of dormant time. I think we've committed, you know, 4 series of the flicking, you know, kicking dust to do this game. So we'll stick with it. And I do honestly think that there's going to be, you know, a good future for Dust. I know that obviously when it was announced it was going, a lot of people's first reaction was it's going, you know, it's going to be gone. But my first reaction was, oh no, I read the bit really first, which said we've got a new game in development and we've got something we're working on. And I'm like, cool, great. You know, I was interested in Legion. I thought Legion was going to be pretty cool. I'm almost kind of glad it's not Legion in a way, because it would be nice if it was just a little bit more different, a little bit more special. But you know, Legion could maybe have just been too close to Dust. I don't know. Maybe that's why they've not carried on with the name, because I was told that they've actually dropped the trademark for Legion as well. So, you know, I'm curious to see why that is. If it's just because they are actually creating a module for Eve, which is basically Eve Online client with a shooter module, then I'm all happy for that as well. So, you know, for me, it's kind of win-win. I know that sounds a bit obvious, but I actually can't see any downside to what they're doing here. You know, the fact that it's on PS3 is limiting the game. The fact that not many people are playing it is also limiting the game. And I think there's not a lot really anybody can do to save that. So, because, you know, I know a lot of people just aren't playing. It takes like 3-4 minutes to get into a match now, whereas before it took 30 seconds. So it's taking its time. So there we go. Post in the comments, bro. Just take a moment. Tell me what you're thinking. I really do think that what I've relayed there is what I would love to see. I would love to see these kind of concepts come into Dust. I think there is a real potential that we could be about to start an interesting, you know, period in the game where it's reborn as something quite different. And I think, no, that is an interesting and compelling reason to maybe just take a bit more of an interest in it if you're not at the moment. And I think just with these kind of games going on, it was a real blast. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.